I'm going to get to our mailbag question of the day now. It's a fun one, more projecting ahead, but it's projecting even further ahead than the draft 2 months from now. We are looking at like 14, 15 months into the future at the free agent class of 2025. Mailbag question of the day comes from Devin, who I'm making sure to pronounce his name the way he told me to. It is not Devon. It is not Devon. It's Devin.
It's Devin. Okay.
Yeah. It seems like the Flyers have a ton of cap space coming in 2025-26. Besides the dream of McDavid or Draisaitl, what other potential free agents could they target that summer? And you look ahead, and it's Draisaitl who will be an unrestricted free agent following next season. He is on the Travis Konechny path, where he's eligible for an extension. This July, he will become an unrestricted free agent if he does not sign one by next July.
Right. And then McDavid is 2026.
Yeah, and McDavid is the following year. And you look at the Flyers cap situation, you just look at like, oh, yeah, it's fine that they overpay Fedotov now. 2 years from now, okay, they're going to have some cap space open. Yep. And there's plenty of contracts that are going to expire along the way.
And ideally, they would be getting Michkov as well on an entry-level contract.
Hopefully one of, if not the best, well, at this point right now, the best player in your team, hopefully, is at $995 or whatever the ELC number is at that point.
At least your best offensive player.
Yes, he's hopefully.
Hopefully.
Just looking at this list now at Cap Friendly, I looked ahead to the 2025 class of free agents, and there are some intriguing names. Now, like we were saying before the show, Charlie, like, I guess it's possible. I hope everyone actually watching can see that. It's not great for us. That's why I'm looking at it on my screen. Like, I guess it's possible Leon Draisaitl, like we just brought up Bowen Byram. One of the reasons he wanted to leave Colorado is like, I'm never going to be the guy here because we have the next Bobby Orr.
Yeah.
You know, like, and of course he goes to the place that has Rasmus Dahlin, but like
and Owen Power.
And Owen Power as well. But like he wants the chance to be kind of seen apart from Cale Makar.
I also think his development was stalling out a little bit in Colorado because underlying numbers this season with the Avalanche were bad. Now, you wonder if part of that is because of the concussions he's dealt with or if part of that is just it wasn't working out there.
Yeah.
But I get his point where it's like, hey, I ain't never going to get out of Cale Makar's shadow in Colorado.
So
let me try to make my own path.
Maybe Leon Draisaitl has a similar thought.
Yeah.
I would be surprised to see him get out of Edmonton. There's a couple of guys I wanted to run by you on this list that I thought would be interesting. The first of which, he's all the way down there at number 49 on the list. He'll be 29 when his contract expires next season. Just scored his 5th career playoff overtime goal. Carter Verhaeghe. 72 points this season, 34 goals. He's really come on in his mid to late 20s. It kind of feels like a Danny Briere-ish signing. Not like the Eska, but like when they signed Briere in 07, it was, we need a guy, like he's clutch in the playoffs. He comes through. He's won. Obviously hasn't won the way Verhaeghe did in Tampa and now going on these runs with Florida. But like Briere had playoff success. He was a veteran. He was a skilled guy. You needed to add something to the youngish core here. I feel like Verhaeghe could kind of fit the timeline.
I mean, maybe. I guess he would only be 29, going on 30, I guess. 29 going on 30 in next summer when he hits because he's an August birthday. So he'd be 30 once he actually starts his Flyers career. Look, he's obviously a guy who's on the tip of everyone's tongue because he just scored the game-winning goal in overtime again last night. He has that, like... He's probably done it enough where you think that at the very least he doesn't get worse in clutch situations. Perhaps he is one of those guys who does indeed step up his game in clutch situations. I would assume that though will mean he will cost more because teams will want that clutch element that he's brought in the past. I'm not saying it's the worst idea. I'm curious to see though if 2025 is the year where they make the pivot. If that's because it's not going to be this summer. They made that clear. They're not going to be in the market for the big free agents. They're not going to be trading away future assets for vets. But 2025 is interesting to me for another reason that you don't hint at. I wonder if they might see 2025 as the year because I'm looking at this and the guys who jump out at me are not the forwards. It's the defensemen.
Because
I wonder if they would see 2025 as a time where it's like, we need to get that crusty old vet, pay him a lot of money, but get him because not only will he solidify that decor, it also will help the young guys like the Cam Yorks, maybe the Emil Andres by that point, maybe the Oliver Bonks. Like, I'm not saying these guys are going to be available, but you do have guys like Victor Hedman and Jacob Slavin who are slated to be free agents in 2025. I would imagine both of those guys as both a developmental help and also just helping on the ice.
Leadership.
I imagine those guys would be very intriguing to Danny Briere.
Victor Hedman was going to be my main event here because I feel like a few weeks ago, it was a while ago, but you brought up the idea of like when they're going to make this turn, like they're going to need someone like that probably. Yeah. And he could play that Pronger role where he will be 34 when he's signing, 2 years from now. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he's a young guy, but also he had 76 points in 78 games this year for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like, I don't know. It seems like he still has it. And Chris Pronger, listen, yeah, they only got really one healthy year out of him. He was awesome in that year. They went to the Stanley Cup final. And the half of a healthy year they got out of him, they were a 100-point team. It wasn't until that third year it really fell apart. Like, it's not the smartest thing to invest in a 34-year-old.
No, generally not. But I will say that Victor Hedman
he's a Hall of Fame,
maybe the best defenseman
of his generation,
of his era.
Yeah.
Those guys tend to age pretty well.
Yeah.
Like, look at freaking Chris Chelios. He played until he was 50. Like, Nicholas Lidstrom could have played until he was 50. He just, like, woke up one day in his mid-40s. He's like, I'm not the best defenseman in hockey anymore. I guess I'll retire.
I finished third in Norris voting. This is bullshit. I retire.
If he wanted to do a Chelios, he could have. He could have hung around as a solid third-pair defenseman until he was in his late 40s, early 50s. He was just one of those guys where if I'm not the best, I don't want to do it anymore. The Hall of Fame defensemen tend to have a very long career because they're just smart enough that they can adapt to when some of the physical ability goes away. Slavin is interesting to me too on a couple levels. Number one, because I know this because Keith Jones has told this to me on the record multiple times. They are kind of modeling their defense development plan off of the Carolina Hurricanes. Jacob Slavin is the best player on that blue line. And Jacob Slavin is one of those guys, like, you could stick him next to Jamie Drysdale and that pairing could be a top pair. Because he already showed he can carry fucking Tony D'Angelo. If he can do that, he can carry anybody.
Yeah. He is another interesting name on here. I mean, the highlight name for me is Mikko Rantanen.
Oh, yeah, because he's a superstar.
He's a superstar.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Like, that's the highlight name.
I mean,
that's
aside from Draisaitl, who's, like, better than Rantanen.
I just, like, they have nothing else, Like, Edmonton has those two guys. There's other players there, but they have those two guys. And I look at Colorado as, like, they have a lot of masters to serve in terms of how they have to work their cap. Yeah. Like, and I think Tampa Bay is the same way. Like, Steven Stamkos might not be a Lightning a couple of weeks from now.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of crazy.
I would have to believe, and maybe not because NHL GM is going to NHL GM. I would have to believe that if they've had conversations, I haven't been following this at all because I'm pretty laser focused on the Flyers. I would have to believe that if Edmonton has conversations with Draisaitl and either they decide he doesn't fit their future cap situation or Draisaitl himself doesn't want to re-sign or isn't willing to commit to the idea that he wants to stay an Oiler, I would have to believe they look to trade him this summer.
You have to trade him.
You have to trade him, right?
And you can't
let him walk for nothing.
And a team that trades for, like, one of the best players in the league, the assets it's going to take to acquire him, you can't possibly do that without first negotiating an extension.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, the idea of Leon Draisaitl hitting the market is insane to me. It could happen because this league's wild, but, like, that seems a bit much.
It does. Real quick, because we're going to stay on this topic, but we do have a super chat from Linden49. Caden Lindstrom at center would be a win. It'd be great, but everything I've gathered in my early stages of research is that he's unlikely to pass by like 5 or 6. So Linden49, keep dreaming, bud. You never know.
Do you think that's Trevor Linden?
Do you think it's Trevor Linden?
I don't know.
What's he doing these days?
Who's to say?
But yeah, I mean, going back to these free agents, I understand why our friend Devin likes the idea of looking forward in time.
It's fun.
It's fun. It's always great to have hope. The vast majority of these guys on this list are going to be re-signed before 2025.
The superstars rarely hit the free agent market. I guess if you want to put Alex Pietrangelo in that category, he's one of the bigger ones over the last few years. But if you're going to go out and get one of those dudes, it's more than likely going to be in a trade.
Yeah.
Which does, I mean, if the Flyers are going to continue to stockpile assets, that does help in acquiring one.
It does, absolutely.
You know, like it took quite a bit to acquire Chris Pronger. It was, what, Lucas Pisa, 2 more firsts, and Joffrey Lupul, maybe some other shit. Like, it was a whole lot. And that's for an old guy.
Yeah.
To get a guy who maybe fits this timeline a little better, someone who's going to be here for a run of years, they're going to have to continue to stockpile these assets like they're doing.
I am unsure if they are going to make the pivot in 2025. Like, they could, but like if this team takes a step back next year, which I think we both agree is very possible. You know, they're taking a risk on the goaltending. They're most likely, unless they go out and re-sign in this offseason, they're not going to have Sean Walker the entire year. So unless Jamie Drysdale takes a big step forward, the defense is probably going to be weaker. We don't know if you're going, like, I would hope that given a full offseason of work and the fact that he will be able to recuperate from the things he's been dealing with in the second half of the year, I would hope that next year you get first half Sean Couturier for the entire year. It is certainly possible that instead you get second half Sean Couturier for the entire year. And if that's the case, Flyers aren't a very good team. And if the Flyers take a step back next year and aren't in the playoff mix, I don't know how realistic it is to imagine that in 2025...
Danny's going to go, okay, time to flip the switch.
And you're still waiting one more year for Michkov.
That's...
I'm skeptical he will be like, yeah, this is the time for me to offer Mikko Rantanen, you know, $12 million a year for 7 years.
No, it would be surprising if that's the case. But it's also a question of we don't know if they just want to, okay, if Michkov's on the timeline we think he's on, which all signs point to probably.
Right. You never know, but we're operating under the assumption it's 2 more years.
Like, do you want to start when he gets here, or do you want to have something going when he gets here? You know, like, okay, we're going to start as soon as we get Matvei Michkov, now it's time to find him someone to play on that first line with. Or, we need Mikko Rantanen here as the 1C or playing on the opposite wing of Michkov. Like, we need that established so we have something. So he's excited to come here, you know? Yeah. And so his first year after all this waiting isn't, just another lost season after 5 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not concerned about the idea of Michkov deciding he doesn't want to be a Flyer, but I am. I mean, I guess you're always going to be concerned about that because it's something to be worried about. Because obviously, like, that's nightmare fuel, and you love your nightmare fuel.
I'm not concerned about it, but it's crazy to say there's no chance of anything going wrong. Is crazy.
Fair.
This is the fucking Flyers, and it's Russia.
This is fair. But I do think it's going to be important. Like, if we're operating on the assumption that Michkov is going to come over here and maybe not be, top 5 superstar in the league right away, but pretty darn good right away. If we're operating under that assumption, I don't want to waste his entry-level years. His entry-level deal years. Because you are going to have a massive competitive advantage when he is getting paid a sub-$1 million cap hit to be a top-line player. I want to take advantage of that. Like, that was my big thing, why it was, like, mind-boggling how poorly Edmonton dealt with McDavid. Like, you have an elite player right off the jump, and you have Peter Chiarelli, like, just tripping over his own you-know-what for 4 years. Like, it was insane.
Imagine. No, but, like, exactly. Like, that is the equivalent of, like, Russell Wilson 3rd-round pick on his rookie deal. Yeah, man. We have every defensive player in the league.
Yeah. Like, let's go.
That's just like, that is a huge advantage when one of your most important players is not just underpaid the way like Sean Couturier or Wayne Simmons were on their contracts, but like wildly underpaid.
Yeah, exactly.
He's making under $1 million. We can get 3 players for what we should be paying him.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I don't want them to let that. I don't want their patience, which right now I agree. I think it's the right move to be patient. But I don't want their patience to extend into the early Michkov years. Because like, well, Michkov's 22. We have him forever. It's like you do, but you're never going to have him this cheap again.
Yeah. And like, there's not going to be a bridge deal.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to get 10 plus right away.
If he's as good as we think and we hope he's going to be, there ain't no bridge deal. It's immediately jumping to 10 mil plus.
Or you have a bigger problem on your hands. You still don't have any high-end talent.
Yeah, because he just stinks. Then it's like, well, shit.
We all silly like the mayor.